The applause was for the video, not for me, I'm sure. So, Marion, thanks for sharing your story. That's great. We loved seeing that, and thanks to the APA members for stepping up to the plate when a partner needed some help. So, good morning. Welcome to APA 2014, our 100th anniversary. I'm so excited to be here, and I hope that you all will take advantage of every opportunity that's afforded to you over the next few days. My name's Chuck Scott. I'm the APA Vice President for Professional Development, and I would like to thank you all for being here. You deserve a round of applause. Thank you for coming. What a beautiful place and surrounding to hold our 100th anniversary celebration. We've got a really exciting 3 days ahead of us. We have over 50 different educational sessions, an exciting exhibit hall, and nearly 900 people. We're hoping we hit 1,000. Nearly 900 people here in attendance in San Diego. From our humble beginnings, APA has seen 10 decades of great change, challenges, growth, and success. Today, we serve over 1,300 member institutions throughout the United States, Canada, Mexico, and throughout the world. Let me mention a few words about our APA 2014 Planning Committee. This year's committee lined up a really good week for us during our stay here in San Diego, and what's more, they've taken careful aim to make sure that our educational sessions are important, are timely, and are relevant to our diversity of our membership. Let's give our planning committee a round of applause for their hard work in advance. Each year, APA's annual conference serves as our platform for dialogue and for public debate on the challenges, on the critical issues that face us all. Together, as leaders in education, we hope to use our time in San Diego wisely and to build consensus and to build and define our path forward. Once again, APA organized both its Senior Facilities Officer Summit and the Emerging Professional Summit, which were held in tandem yesterday as part of our annual conference. In particular, our EPs, the Emerging Facilities Summit, was one of the opportunities that we offer to encourage among the next generation of educational facilities professionals. And that doesn't mean they're young, that means that they're new people to our profession. So we want to provide opportunities for our up-and-coming professionals to network, to engage, and certainly to share their ideas. Our emerging professionals are making APA an even stronger and more vibrant organization than what it already is. So let's thank our emerging professionals for joining us here this week. During the next 3 days, our general sessions will feature well-known educational facilities officers, recognized higher education professionals and administrators, industry experts, and so much more. We'll hear their vision about education, about facilities, and as APA enters into its next century. We'll learn how APA and its member institutions will change the challenges brought forth by technology, the current economy, and the changes now taking place in higher education's business model. Before we begin today's plenary session, I'd like to invite to the podium Mr. Kelly Baxley from SIEMENS Building Technologies. SIEMENS is one of APA's 2014's chief business sponsors, and Kelly will serve as the moderator for this morning's session. Kelly?
Good morning, everybody. How's everything? Board of Directors, Mr. President, all APA members, both domestic and international, and a big Texas howdy to my business partners out there. Welcome to sunny Southern California in the beautiful city of San Diego. So excited and humbled and honored that the leadership of APA and SIEMENS has afforded me the opportunity to be the first business partner to officially say, Happy 100th anniversary, APA. Way to go. I've been excited for a year to say that, so I got it out of the way. Can you believe that on March 23rd, 1914, nearly a dozen business university representatives gathered at the University of Chicago for the organizational meeting of what would become APA? John M. Fisk, Superintendent of Grounds and Buildings at the University of Iowa, wrote to his Midwestern colleagues in late January to suggest the benefits of such a gathering. This proposal was met with hearty approval from his peers. Ohio State College, now University, Superintendent William C. McCracken's response was typical. While we are all trying to do practically the same kind of work, we are probably each one doing it in a different way, and by exchanging our views, it may be possible to gather information which will be great value to our institutions and help solve problems which are continually arising, probably finding in a more economical way than if we solved the problems ourselves. It's amazing. A lot has changed. A lot of firsts have been accomplished over the last 100 years, but the mission of APA and the APA conference has not. Again, 100 years. Happy anniversary, guys. Over the last year, Siemens has participated in the APA 2014 Programming Committee. Representing Siemens on the committee and the APA Professional Development Committee is our Global Building Technologies Market Manager for Higher Education, Mr. Steve Hoiberg. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Steve for all his dedication and support of APA. Thank you, Steve. Siemens has assembled a team of experts this year to support the 100th anniversary, representing our newest technology. Our booth number is 301. We look forward to seeing you and sharing our building technologies with you. We're proud to be presenting 3 educational sessions this year, which is also a first for Siemens. As you can see, I've got this theme of first. I like this history. Please join us today from 2 to 3 at the Executive Center 1. The session is titled The Campus as a Learning Laboratory, Using the Built Environment to Revitalize College Education. That's from the Central New Mexico Community College. And also today from 4:30 to 5:30 at the Executive Center 1. The session is titled Virginia Tech's Operation Control Center, Leveraging Life Cycle Strategies to Improve Campus Control. And tomorrow from 3:15 to 4:15 p.m. at Marina 2, the session is titled SMU and the Total Campus Approach to Facilities Upgrades and Systems Modernization. You know, history is made from first, like the first meeting in 1914 at the University of Chicago. During my research, I just kept stumbling on all these different firsts. So I'd just like to recap some interesting ones that caught my attention. In 1915, the first president of APA, James A. Marks from the University of Michigan. In 1993, the first female president, Diane Kirby from Berea College. 1996, the first female executive vice president and still running the show, our very own, Lander Medley. Way to go, Lander. One that I had a particularly lot of fun doing was in 2008, the first APA conference that was opened by a Texas cowgirl. That was 2008, Miss Rodeo, Texas, Avery Gonzalez. In 2011, the first APA-U combined full 4-track programs of the Institute and Academy under one roof. What an accomplishment that was. I remember that very well. You guys deserve a huge hand for that. And in 2013 seemed to be a big year for some firsts. The first African-American member elected president-elect and will become APA president 2014, Randolph Hare, Washington and Lee University. Congratulations, Lee. You got a lot of work ahead of you, sir. Also in 2013, Siemens was honored to share in making APA's list of first. The Visionary Business Partner was formed, and Siemens is proud to be that first business partner. I can only encourage the rest of you business partners to work hard, show the dedication to get there. It pays dividends at the end. Thank you. Also, APA honored the first and one proud Siemens APA business partner, the 18th recipient of the coveted Eagle Award. Thank you very much. With all the history being written by APA for 100 years, it's only fitting that today's speaker is a historian and professor. This morning we will explore how the history of higher education in the United States can help us think about the future. Higher education has a long and diverse history in the United States. Many scholars have observed that we have the messiest but the most transformative system in the world. So much so that numerous foreign societies have modeled their systems on parts of our very own. This lecture will describe the most pioneering and enduring elements of American higher education system and what we can learn from them for the uncertain reforms of our present era. The lecture will interrogate continuing dilemmas, and it will offer some historically informed paths for thinking about access, distance learning, diversity, and finance. Jeremi Suri holds the Mack Brown Distinguished Chair for Leadership in Global Affairs at the University of Texas in Austin. He is a professor in the university's Department of History and the Lyndon B. Johnson School of Public Affairs. Professor Suri is the author of 5 books on contemporary politics and foreign policy. In September 2011, he published a new book on the past and future of nation building. Liberty's Surest Guardian, America Nation Building from the Founders to Obama. Professor Suri's research and teaching have received numerous prizes. In 2007, Smithsonian Magazine named him one of America's top young innovators in the arts and sciences. His writings appeared widely in blogs and print media. Professor Suri is a frequent public lecturer and a guest on radio and television programs. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome this morning our guest speaker, Mr. Jeremi Suri.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. Thank you. Thank you. Well done. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm told I'm supposed to say it's showtime, right? So it's showtime, I guess. I love hearing, everyone loves hearing, their awards announced, but I always think, I was named one of the best young innovators. My wife keeps reminding me that young is falling out, and maybe the innovation as well. I want to thank some of the wonderful people who made it possible for me to be here. John Bernhards, Suzanne Healy, Chuck Scott. In particular, I want to do a shout out to my colleague, Steve Kroll, who I think is responsible for getting me here. So if you don't like what you hear, talk to Steve Kroll, don't talk to me. And of course, I want to thank Lander Medlin, who's sitting here in front and the star of the video before us here. I have a pretty full schedule, as I'm sure all of you do, and I try to leave July free. I promise my family July is the one month I generally won't do these kinds of lectures. But Lander convinced me on the phone and gave me the language to convince my wife, or at least partially convince my wife. One of the many advantages of having a female executive director, right? So I'm really delighted to be here. What I want to talk about today are not the details of facilities. You know that much better than I do. You're the expert on that in this audience. I want to talk about what universities are about. What are universities designed to do? How can we think about the mission of our universities, the historical place they have played and roles they have played in our society, and the ways in which that history, that mission, those accomplishments can help guide us as we think about the many uncertainties, challenges, and I think also opportunities that we face today. So what I want to do today is provide a framework, provide a background, provide a model for the way you can think about the detailed decisions you have to make. And of course, I understand that the devil is in the details. But I think it's important that we know what we do. I'll let you in on a dirty little secret. If you go around most universities and you ask most faculty what the university is about, most of them don't know. Most of them don't know. Most faculty know what they are doing for themselves and their students and their research. Very few have a bird's eye view of what the university is about. That falls to you in many respects. You're the ones who create the environment. You're the ones who have to integrate what the different departments, the different Nobel Prize winners, the different laboratories, the different classrooms, what they are all doing together. The greatness of our university system has always been that it is messy, that it is not centrally planned, and that it depends on campus-by-campus actors to keep the big picture in mind. No one in Washington, D.C., or your state capital is doing this. And those of you who spend time with state legislators know that. It's up to all of you. It's up to all of you. Our system has thrived, in contrast to systems in other societies, because people on campuses have made good decisions. Not perfect decisions, but good decisions. And our system has built on the best practices that one campus has learned from another. That's what APA, it seems to me, is all about. You can share your best practices. You can share ideas. No one is deciding for you. You are making those decisions. That's how a democratic society works. And one of my core arguments today is that universities, as we know them, are manifestations of our democracy as well as promoters of our democracy. I want to talk about this history. I want to talk about what it means for us today. So let me start with a little bit of history and some nice images. You had some to start already, but I'm going to show you some more. This is the University of Wisconsin-Madison. By most accounts, the leading research university of the late 19th century. That is the university in the 1880s. That is the university. How many people have been to the campus in Madison before, right? That's what it was 120 years ago. 120 years ago. It didn't look that different when APA was founded either, by the way. There's the University of Texas at the same time. I showed that picture to our president. I said, that's where your office used to be. He said, some people want to send us right back there, don't they? That's the University of Texas in 1883, just after it was founded. Now, here's a map, a bird's eye view map of Austin, Texas. It's a little hard to see in the back. I apologize. I love maps, so I can't resist showing them. So I love PowerPoint. I feel blessed to grow up in an age when I can use PowerPoint maps, not having to carry in those maps that our teachers had to use, right? You'll see here in this bird's eye view of Austin, a planned capital city, like most capital cities and most university towns. You see the capital right in the middle, what's going to become the capital. There's no university yet. It's 1873. The university is going to be on the north side, the top side of that image. Here it is in the 1880s. There's the university at the top and the capital in the middle, right? Everyone can see this? Middle capital, university on the top. What you should notice about these maps and about these universities is that they're very different from the kinds of universities people talk about when they talk about higher education in Europe, and really when they talk about the exceptions in our system, which are the private religious colleges. Some of them you might have heard of, Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. Right? Those were private religious colleges when they were founded. The modern university, as we know it, is formed in exactly this environment. I could show these images not just for Madison and Austin. I could show them for Columbus. I could show them for Ann Arbor. Right? I could show them for Berkeley. I could show them for all sorts of small and large institutions, most of whom, the vast majority of whom, are public in major dimension. They were formed on the frontier. Everyone see that? That's the frontier of Austin. They are frontier institutions. Their origins are in places that are not settled. Their origins are in the openness of new space. And their origins are fundamentally in the presumption that if you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. Here is the dirty secret. Universities were formed as built environments before they were educational institutions. The buildings preceded the students. The buildings preceded the students. The buildings structured the students. And universities in the United States look different from anywhere else. If you visited them, you know. The man who really talked most specifically about this, and most helpfully for us, was a man named Frederick Jackson Turner. How many people have heard of Frederick Jackson Turner? Only a few of you. Shame on your history teachers. This is the problem of having the football coach teach history in high school, isn't it? I say this as the Mac Brown professor, by the way, for all of you, right? Life is filled with ironies, isn't it? Frederick Jackson Turner was a professor at the University of Wisconsin soon after it opened. He grew up in Portage, Wisconsin. Frederick Jackson Turner might be the most important thinker about American democracy since the Founding Fathers and Abraham Lincoln. What Frederick Jackson Turner argued as a historian was that American society was formed on the frontier. What separates Americans from others, he argued, is that we are a frontier society. We have land surplus. We still do compared to other societies. And, this is crucial for universities, the presumption of American society is that you can always start over. The frontier represents the ability to start over. You are not defined by your family. You are not defined by your background. You are defined by what you do in an open space to make your way. Now, of course, this is oversimplified. Of course, this was not equally true for all citizens. Certain American Indians didn't experience this. Slaves didn't experience this. And there's no doubt that the frontier, as he talks about it, is a very violent place. We are, by the way, the most violent society in the world, by many accounts, right? So it is not that the frontier is a nirvana, a utopia, but it is that the frontier for Turner and for the world of public universities that are coming into existence at exactly this time, in that space that we talked about, if I can get this to move, on the northern part of the city, in these open buildings. The university that's being formed is to recreate and encourage a frontier mentality. The idea of the American university is that you are not creating gentlemen, you are creating pioneering citizens. You are creating the ability for individuals to come from a diversity of different backgrounds and make their way forward, and that the land and the space are crucial, that you bring them into an environment. This is Turner's argument, and it is not the brilliance of the professor or the politician, but it is the experience of the frontier, the experience of coming together, the experience of being with other people, discussing important things, making your way forward, that makes you better. What Turner says is that Americans become Americans not because of the brilliance of our founders or the brilliance of our leaders, but because of the experience of working together in the frontier to make our way. And that's what universities recreate. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, American universities from the very start are residential institutions, whereas European institutions are not residential institutions. That is why American universities have always emphasized the mixing of people rather than the separation of people. That is why American universities have always been about the place as well as the ideas. We are defined by being in Austin or Ann Arbor or Madison or Berkeley as much as we are defined by the professors who are pontificating at the front of the room. The place matters. The place matters. And I'm for distance education, but everyone needs to recognize that distance education poses an important question about what that place is going to be. What is it that's going to define us as such? Place has meant land. This is an important story here. What Americans invented, what all of you experience every day, is that you are building on land. Land that is designated for universities, land that universities in the United States have in more plenitude than any other university system in any other part of the world. We devote more land to our universities than any other society does. This began in 1785. Little more history here. When the University of Georgia was founded, the first public university in the United States, founded by the Georgia State Assembly, and they did what would become the model up to the present. They gave land, not money. They gave land, not money. 40,000 acres of land were allocated to endow a university. That became the basis for the land grant system. We have state land grants. The University of Texas, Austin is a state land grant, and we have federal land grants. The Texas A&M, which I usually don't talk about, Texas A&M is a federal land grant, University of Wisconsin is both, by the way. How do the land grants work? This is an important point here, right? The land that was granted was often not the land initially the universities used. The land was granted because that's what the states had. They had land, not cash. That's what the federal government had. The land was granted, and then the land was sold. And the money from the sale of the land endowed the universities. The money from the sale of the land endowed the universities. That is where the first endowments come from. Not from big-pocketed donors, but from the sales of state and federal land. People abroad don't understand that. They think our system is all about just a bunch of big donors. It's not true. It's about federal and state allocation of resources that provides the basis to endow what we do. And those endowments were first used to build buildings. To build buildings. The way it generally has worked to the present is that the endowments pay for the facilities, right? And the state or some other source pays for the salaries. That's often how it works at universities. This is true throughout the country. In 1862, in one of the most extraordinary acts of enlightened legislation, I would put this up as one of the 2 or 3 most important acts of our federal government. Anytime anyone says to you the federal government doesn't do good things, remember this example. In 1862, in the midst of the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln signed the Morrill Land Grant. How many people have heard of the Morrill Land Grant, right? It creates the land grant system. 30,000 acres of federal land granted to every state to be sold to endow state universities. And let me read you some of the language of the legislation. The legislation states, without excluding other scientific and classical studies, and including military tactic, to teach such branches of learning as are related to agriculture and the mechanic arts, in such manner as the legislatures of the states may respectively prescribe, these universities are to promote the liberal and practical education of the industrial classes in the several pursuits and professions in life. The image I like to use for this is this image. Oh, I went back too far. I love this image. I love this image. We have this false view of American settlers as anti-intellectuals, and you can think this sometimes when you hear people talk in our society, right? But actually, Americans have always valued learning. I would say there are 3 things you have to know if you want to understand how Americans settled westward land and southern land. 3 things. They went to seek land. They went to kill Indians. And they went to build universities. Seek land, kill Indians, build universities. Texas is a great example of this. The Texas state constitution, in it calls for the creation of a university of the first class, and for the creation, in fact, of 2 major universities. That's what the Morrill Land Grant is all about. These settlers, they wanted to learn. They wanted a place to go and learn so they could be better farmers, so they could manage their communities better, so they could read Shakespeare, so they could be civilized. Universities have always played this role. The frontier for Turner was a space of productive gain and intellectual advancement. To be a democratic citizen, from Thomas Jefferson to Frederick Jackson Turner to our world today, is to be learned as well as to be rich. To be learned as well as to be rich. We as a society, ladies and gentlemen, have used our universities to do this more than any other society. If you want to understand our prosperity, it is because universities have opened the doors in our society for more people than any other university. The Morrill Land Grant Act of 1862 did this, and the second great piece of legislation, also in my top 3, would be the Servicemen's Readjustment Act of 1944. 1944, better known as the GI Bill. How many people have heard of the GI Bill? Right? There might even be some people in the room who benefited from the GI Bill. There's a continual usage of the GI Bill after other wars. What did the GI Bill do? For a society coming out of depression, for a society coming out of war, for a society that was filled with a majority of citizens who had never gone to college, the United States committed its precious resources after World War II to providing a basis for every veteran to go to college if they wanted. And it was the Servicemen's Readjustment Act that changed our universities. If you want to know why our universities no longer look like the earlier pictures I put up, why they no longer look like this, it is because of the infusion of money that came in the mid-20th century and the infusion of students. Every major university was taken over by the federal government during World War II. The government took over the facilities. The government, in many cases, rebuilt the facilities. And then after the war, the government funded more students to go to these universities than ever before. And it changed the way they exist. The dormitory I lived in at Stanford University when I was an undergraduate, right, was still a World War II barracks. That was temporary, right? How many of you have temporary facilities that people are still living in, right? I gave a lecture at Stanford a few months ago, and they had finally taken it down. This is the way my life works, right? I live in the temporary facility. Finally, I leave, and then people get brand new, spanking stuff, right? Why am I going through this? Well, I love this history, and you all need to know it because you're at universities. But there are really important lessons in all of this for us. They're really important lessons. I want to spend the next 15 to 20 minutes talking about that. I'll try to finish in 15 minutes so we have more time for Q&A. One thing that's really important here. Universities have never been elite ivory tower institutions in the U.S. They, in their built environment, are part of the frontier. They, in their location, are part of society. Universities have been embedded within our democracy. We call this the populist part of our universities. And one of the things we often forget when we build walls around our universities is that our universities were designed to take down walls. To take down walls. Our universities were designed to be accessible. The system that we have in place has not been a system of selectivity, but a system of openness. A system of openness. Second point, our universities have always been pragmatic. They've always been about training people to do real-world things. That does not mean vocational education, though that's a part of it. But it means higher thought for purpose in society. Higher thought for purpose in society. And this relates to something you all deal with, which is outreach. The ability of the university to bring its work to other people. That's where distance learning makes sense. But it's not just distance learning. It's what had been done by extension institutions, what had been done by correspondence courses, professional development courses, continual outreach. The most elite of our institutions have also been the ones that make the most outreach. It was the University of Wisconsin, the University of Texas, the University of Michigan, all of whom pioneered this kind of work. At the core of all this, at the core of being populist, at the core of being pragmatic has been research. And if there's nothing else you remember from my lecture today, please remember that research is about people. It is not about isolated laboratories. Research is about what happens at the university that is able to bring things to other people in society and make their lives different. That, more than anything else, drives our economy. I want to give a few examples of this, because we often have a misunderstanding of what research is. I picked out a few of my favorite examples. Here is Harry Steinbach. Harry Steinbach, a good Norwegian immigrant to the United States. Steinbach was a biologist, chemist, and scientist, a sort of autodidact scientist at the University of Wisconsin. In 1923, he developed, using ultraviolet light, a mechanism for adding vitamin D to milk and other products in a university laboratory. This almost single-handedly ended the scourge of rickets in our society. In the 1920s, large numbers of American children died because of bone deficiencies due to vitamin D deficiencies. He solved this problem, but here's the key thing. It wasn't just the fact that he produced this new method. It was that he created a system called the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation, which provides a basis for sharing this product with the world. There was to be a revenue generation attached to it, but it was also to be shared with the public. And it single-handedly changed the way we eat. It changed nutrition, and it happened at a university in Madison, Wisconsin. Here we have Enrico Fermi, another immigrant. You'll sense a theme here of immigrants coming to our universities. Another immigrant. Enrico Fermi was an Italian physicist and a lover of Italian opera, too, by the way. Enrico Fermi was part of a generation of scientists, Jewish scientists, who left Europe, fleeing fascist persecution to come to the United States. They came to American universities. They were not welcome in most parts of American society. None of them, hear my words, none of them were hired by industry. All of them went to universities. They went to universities, and you all know this story. They provided the basis for the Manhattan Project, which was the single largest government-sponsored science project to its time. That was the single largest one we'd ever done in our history. Franklin Roosevelt invented how to do it, using Los Alamos and a connection of university laboratories to create the atomic bomb, which helped to win World War II and structured the rest of our world to the present. And just think how different the world would be if the Germans or the Russians had developed this weapon before us, right? And think how it happened. Think how it happened. I've written about this group. This is at the Harvard Center for International Affairs. Someone I've written a book about, Henry Kissinger. You can see him in the front row. Let me go back to that image. Zbigniew Brzezinski is here. At the end of World War II, with government money, universities created places to do research on international affairs, funded in many ways by the CIA and other parts of the U.S. government. These centers produced not only new knowledge, they produced language capabilities. Most of your campuses have Slavic studies departments. They were all founded at this time in this way. Most area studies were founded in this way. And they produced new leaders, most of whom were immigrants who came to the United States, went to universities, and then became future leaders of our society, governing our foreign policy. Henry Kissinger is, again, one classic model of this. He comes to the United States in 1938 as a German-Jewish immigrant speaking no English. He does not get admitted to major university, but he gets into the Army, comes back through the GI Bill, gets to go to Harvard, and becomes the Henry Kissinger that we know, love and hate. Love and hate. All of this is part of what universities have done. They do a lot more. I want to say something more about athletics. You all manage athletic facilities, right? Universities are entertainment, right? They provide entertainment for their communities. They are entertainment corporations. This is not a new phenomenon. It's on a bigger scale with more money today. It's not a new phenomenon. It was true in the late 19th century as well. I love when I visit a place like Lexington, Kentucky, right, or Ann Arbor, Michigan, or when I'm home in Austin, to see what happens on a Saturday. To see what happens. And why do people come? What is going on? Well, in Lexington, Kentucky, their basketball is it, right? Basketball is it. In Austin, we don't have a professional football team because we have a professional football team, right? It's all there. It's all there. Universities are providing entertainment. Again, a public role. Excellence on the field, we hope. Entertainment beyond. Entertainment beyond. Now, this mixing is not always pleasant. It has always had its ups and downs. These are some images from the 1960s. The students protesting at the University of Wisconsin. And tear gas. I tell my students that they live in a different world from the world, well, it used to be their parents, now their grandparents were in school in, right? Most of my students have never actually been part of a protest, and they have certainly not smelled tear gas. If you went to school in the 60s, that's what you all would have been dealing with, right? Whether students or facilities managers, was this. Police coming onto campus, sometimes tragically, and conflicts occurring on these campuses. Conflicts occurring on these campuses. Oh, how the world has changed. Here's what our universities look like today, right? You know this better than I do. This is an aerial view of the University of Wisconsin. Those are all, I think, university buildings in that image. And here's an image I love. Here's Austin, Texas, right? Notice a number of things about these images. Notice first the size and scale difference from where we started. Isn't that amazing? Just take that in for a second. Take in for a second how different this is from that one pathetic building I put up from the 1880s, right? Think of that change in size and scale and the rapidity with which that has happened. Take that in for a second, right? Think about that. Universities now are so large, they are societies unto themselves. Here is the challenge. Our mission is public. Our mission is to produce new knowledge, to produce new connections, to teach another generation, to be a frontier, but we have become the empire at the same time. Frederick Jackson Turner's argument was that we became democratic citizens because we left empire and we had to pioneer a new space. Now the universities are the empires. Now the universities are the empires. Look at your state budgets. Look at the size of their budgets. Look at the size of those universities in ways that was truly unthinkable for anyone even 50 years ago. Even 50 years ago. Here's the biggest problem faculty face. We never see each other. Right? We're so big. We're so diffuse. We are traveling so much. I was saying this before to John. I'm more likely to meet a colleague from another part of the University of Texas at a conference in Berlin, where we're both invited, than at the University of Texas, right? We are so big, right? We are so big, we are so spread out, and we are so in our own peer groups. That's the point here, right? Instead of the university sitting as a building within a larger society, it is an empire that has closed itself off to a lot of what else goes around it. Yet at the same time, we're more embedded than ever before. That's why I love this image. Where does the university end and where does Austin begin? Right? It's not that frontier. It's one and the same. It's one and the same. We are part of what we would call the contemporary urbanism. The cool places to live. That's why I love living in Austin. The cool places to live are the knowledge cities. People want to be near universities. Even conservatives who hate universities want to be near universities. Right? They attract the knowledge workers. They create the spin-offs. They're knowledge cities. They're entertainment cities, right? They have good restaurants, nice music. They're fun places to be. They're fun places to be. They're innovative. They're creative. And they're inordinately complex and messy in ways that are stimulating for all of us. Most people would choose to live near a university if they could, whether they like universities or not. They wouldn't want to live on campus with the students, but they'd want to be near the benefits from these universities. Here is the challenge. Our mission is public. Our connections are deeper to the public than ever before, but our central operating principles are self-reflective, narcissistic, focused on who we are because of our size and our scale. We are victims of our success. We are victims of our success. We have achieved so much, we look inward to ourselves, and we forget our mission, which is where I started. To me, this history should tell us that to be successful as a built environment, to be successful as a research environment, to be successful as a teaching campus, we need to recreate the frontier. We need to break down the silos, break down the bureaucracy, break down the stratification, and make ourselves more connected internally, create more spontaneity, create more of the virtues of smallness while being as big as we are. Create more of the virtues of smallness while being as big as we are. I think this has enormous implications for what all of you do. In fact, I think you are going to be the ones who figure this out. Here's what we need to do. Here's my agenda of 5 things from this history. And these are all almost impossible things to do, so I'm going to leave them to you to do. But here's what the University of the Future, I think, needs to look like. Number one, more students need to be able to get educated than ever before. But they need to get educated not as individuals, but as part of a community. There needs to be a sense of community. It doesn't work if they don't. Everything I've said has not been about what happens on a test, but what happens in the community. Universities are communities. Distance learning is part of that process. Access is part of that process. Community has to be reinvented, but it has to be community. We are not judged on the test scores. We are judged on the communities that are built. That's how alumni networks work. That's how business works. That's how research and discovery works. We need to serve more students in more places and create community at the same time. They often run against each other. We are not doing that successfully today. Second agenda item from this history. We need to make sure that what's happening at our universities is always experimental, always spontaneous. We cannot be locked in to doing things the way we're doing them because we've always done them that way. The frontier worked for Turner because it didn't operate that way. We at universities operate that way. Everything I hear at meetings I attend are that we can't do something because we've never done it that way before. We always do it the way we do it. Our buildings are designed a certain way. We should teach that way. We do parking a certain way. We deal with students a certain way. That has to change. That has to change. You have to lead to convince people that because they've done things a certain way doesn't mean they always should. That's the mark of being a good historian. We don't study history to just replay the past. We study history to imagine alternatives, to think about alternative ways of doing what we do. Alternative ways of doing what we do. Third element, we need on our campuses to encourage more research, not less, more research, more research. Research dollars are getting harder to come by, and the cost of research has increased, especially in the sciences, but in all areas, right? We need to find not just efficient ways to get more butts in seats, but to get more research done efficiently, right? Our model in the past has been a model of just throwing more things at the existing laboratories, not creating better research environments. Fourth thing, perhaps the most important, we need to make our campuses public again. We need to have more people coming to our campuses who are not students and faculty and alumni and football fans. We need to make our campuses more public, more accessible. This is really hard. This is really hard. Most people who want to come to a campus want to drive, and there's no place for them to park. Right? It's a real problem. It's a real problem, right? It's a problem that's killing us. It's killing us. Because those who can't come to campus don't know what we're about. They don't know what we're about. Tear down the walls, bring people back to campus, make the campus a frontier for everyone, as it historically has been. It was the Oxfords and Cambridges that were closed to the public. It was the Wisconsins and Texases and Berkeleys and even the Yales and Princetons that were open to the public, And fifth, most important, and I think what APA is all about, you need to train leaders who are not just technically competent, but understand what the university is about. Understand this mission. This history is vitally important because I told you it's important, but also because it's why we do what we do. Why we do what we do. And it can't be just university presidents who say this. It has to be the people who manage the day-to-day affairs at universities. We have to know what we are about. We have to know what our values are, and we have to make sure everything we do puts those values into place. Cost issues are important, but if you save money and you violate your values and your mission, you have not done anything effective. You are better off doing less and doing it better. You are better off doing less and doing it better. This is the biggest problem our society faces today. As Kelly said, I write about foreign policy. Our problem is not that we have bad foreign policy makers, it's that we're trying to do too much in too many places all at the same time. Anyone think what President Obama's day looks like? Right? Anyone think what a university president's day looks like? Think about what your day looks like. Remember your values. Find the ways you can achieve those values effectively. Focus on the few victories that will accomplish more rather than trying to do everything. And find ways to make sure that your bosses know you cannot do everything. Successful leadership in universities has not been about solving every problem, teaching every subject, doing every kind of research all at the same time. It's about choosing priorities, knowing our values, and building that frontier. American society will remain great. It will remain great if our universities remain great. If our universities continue to be frontiers for immigrants and strivers, people like Harry Steinbach, Enrico Fermi, Henry Kissinger, and myself. I am the child of immigrants from Russia and India. It's only in America that one could say this, right? I'm a Hindu, right? My children are too. And what's extraordinary is I could only be where I am because universities provided a frontier. I have working class immigrant parents, but it was universities that provided a basis for me to make a life for myself. That's what universities are about, that frontier. Everything we do has to be about creating new frontiers. You will build the frontiers, you will build the pathways to them, and you will move people along them, and I thank you for all that you do. Thank you. I'll get out of here. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do 10 minutes?
Absolutely, as long as you'd like.
Thank you, Jeremi. It's very, very inspirational and a lot of insight. I share some of the frontierism from a little town in Paris, Texas.
Absolutely.
This morning, we are going to be having a 10-minute question and answering session. There are microphones strategically placed on the main aisles here. I encourage y'all to come up, ask questions, and Jeremi will answer them.
Good morning. My name is Phil Cox. I'm wondering, because about 10% of our members are Canadian, and certainly the impetus for the founding of their campuses was different, no Morrill Act. Would you draw any distinctions for our Canadian cousins on some of these challenges you put before us?
It's a great question, Phil. So Canada is a frontier society. The US, Canada, and Australia share a lot in that respect, but you're right, the history of their universities is very different, and I'm in no way an expert on it. But you have a McGill, as you have a University of Toronto, and others. But what I think is definitely true is over the last century, their universities have followed a pattern similar to our own. And if you think of a place like the University of Toronto, I think you see that. They become larger, they become more research-focused, they become more public. In fact, they're entirely funded, I think, in a public way. So I think there's a lot of overlap, but I think there's one key difference that's very important, which is that the Canadian system is much more of a system with different levers of political control. So I think the politics work very different in their society than they do in ours, and I think it's almost an advantage in Canada. I think our politics tend to sometimes run against established institutions. And that's something we need to fight. We need to make it clear that as American institutions, we're not just the establishment, we're also the future. My sense is that Canadian politics, there's less of that anti-establishment element, but maybe that's changing. Maybe that's changing now. But I think the Canadian model has a lot of parallels from the 20th century forward. Just as one more example, during World War II, you have a similar process where the government takes over the universities there. You have funding that goes to veterans as they return. So you could say the last 50 to 100 years, we see a lot of similarities. Thank you for your question, Phil.
Next question.
Good morning. Do you have a view as to whether campuses are overbuilt?
Well, I think it develops it depends from campus to campus, but I do think there is a tendency, if overbuilt means to say that the emphasis is upon creating private space and not creating public space, I do think that's a problem. I think we've gone away from the value of public space, and there are things that have pushed us in that direction, such as safety issues, too. Where I have trouble is that I think the center of the campus always has to be the public space. And we spend less and less time thinking about that in many cases. That would be my view.
Do we have right here to the...
Yeah, good morning. I'm Steve Larkin from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
Hi, Steve. I should have mentioned Chapel Hill. It's, of course, one of our great public universities.
Well,
except for that basketball team. I mean...
Now, I work in housing facilities in the Division of Student Affairs, and there is a debate in that division nationally. Looking back, a lot of our colleges were residential, and the professors were with the students day and night, and there was healthy debates in the residence halls and evenings. And we've kind of gotten away from that, and so people in student affairs now think that it does something different. It develops citizenship and character and community. And so when you talk about community, I'd be interested in your perspective on that, and if either direction is good or bad, or where you think we're going or should go.
I very strongly believe that the residential model that you described of creating communities in the dormitories or wherever people live is crucial to what universities have been. Now, not everyone has benefited from that, in fact, a small proportion of students, but it is a manifestation of the community. What it is when you come to a university as a student or when you're a scholar or hopefully a visitor is you are part of an ongoing intellectual discussion. And that discussion should not end when you leave the classroom or when you leave the library. It should be part of what's deeply built into your lives. And we are teaching civility. So I didn't say this in my lecture because I didn't necessarily want to say it, but maybe now I'll say it. I'm feeling emboldened now, right? The lack of civility in our society today, we've all seen it. The incivility, in some ways, is our fault. We're not teaching civility. All those people who are uncivil, who we see and we're embarrassed by when we see their uncivil behavior, I'm embarrassed sometimes for my kids to watch what politicians say on TV, right? They all came through our universities. They all came through our universities. Where do you learn civility? Well, you learn it the same way we learned it at home with our parents, right? You learn it in an environment with other people where you're forced to engage viewpoints you disagree with hotly, but people you have to live with at the same time, and people you come to respect even though you might not agree with them. I fear we've lost that as we become more professionalized and compartmentalized. Universities helped us counteract those pressures when they emphasized much more of that traditional residential experience. I'd like to see us come back to that, and it doesn't just have to be residential. I think it's valuable when we create all kinds of experiences for people outside the classroom, and we're programmatic about it, and Student Affairs is thinking about book discussions, campus speakers, all sorts of things that can bring people together in that way.
Question in the center, please.
Yes, my name is Charles Kennedy from the University of Washington. And we have a shared governance model there with the faculty and administration. But it oftentimes seems that there's a division. You know, the faculty has a perspective that it doesn't always align naturally. And as you explained earlier, the absence of knowledge sometimes. But what would you suggest as a recommendation as to how we on the administrative side could gain more leverage and opportunities with the faculty?
I thank you for asking that excellent question. I think it's absolutely crucial that we recognize what you've just said, because it's true. And I've seen it at multiple universities. I've seen it at every university I've been at, Yale, Wisconsin, Texas. Faculty fear that the administration is basically infringing on their prerogatives for research and teaching, and that they're going to be made into factory workers. And administrators resent that faculty don't think they have bosses, right? Which is true. Most faculty think they work for themselves. They just collect a paycheck that gets put into their account, right? And so how do you deal with this? This is the question. I think on both ends there's work that has to be done. I think administrators and university leaders, one of their jobs, number one, and all of you in your offices, are in convincing everyone you work with, faculty and staff and others, of what the common mission is. People have to know what they're about. Why are they there? What are we doing? What is it that makes us the University of Washington? What is it that makes us this great institution? What is it that makes us the University of Texas? Why are we here? And they have to see administrators living to that mission as well as the faculty. That takes a long time. It takes a lot of work. But things cannot come to the faculty as orders from on high, because then they're resented in that way. At the same token, faculty need to recognize the realities of the world they're in and how privileged they are, right? And faculty leaders have to make that case as well. So both sides of this have to work. It takes a lot of discussion. In my experience, you have a lot of faculty administrative tensions because there's actually not enough dialogue. Administrators are too busy, right? And faculty are too busy doing their things. Leaders of institutions have to take time to do this. We've been working on this a little bit at the University of Texas. We have not succeeded yet. But some ideas I've had are, and doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be followed through on, but ideas I've had, maybe they're bad ideas, are, for instance, I think more time should be taken when faculty arrive on campus when they're hired to actually make them understand what the university is about. I mean, the dirty secret is, right, faculty show up and then they just go into the classroom, right? More time. Same thing with new staff hires, right? Get people on the same page. That needs to be followed up on more. There have to be more touches between people in your line and people in other areas, working together, feeling they're part of a team, not that they're antagonistic offices. And again, that's an issue of time, not money. And time is even more precious than money, but we have to make time for that. That's my view of that.
Okay, our next question's over on the left.
Hi, Mike Bertelson from University of Minnesota. Another great university.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're all great, but University of Minnesota is particularly fantastic.
Oh,
pioneering in environmental work right now. I have a friend who leads their environmental program.
We have a camera on that quote. I'm really drawn to your conversation about community and public spaces, especially since the biggest amount of space in our campus is private offices. And so I'm thinking about, we've talked about alternative workspace environments.
Absolutely.
And mostly have been doing the administrative side, but imagining how could you convince faculty to say we should give up private offices and create more open spaces where we'll meet students, meet each other. I'm wondering your thoughts on that.
Well, I think that's definitely the way to go. I say that as someone who has 2 private offices on campus I don't want to give up. But no, I think it's definitely the way to go. I mean, first of all, I mean, what's true, I mean, 2 things that startle anyone who walks onto a campus. You all know this, but that startle anyone who's not as familiar with the things the way you are, is how infrequently faculty are in their private offices, but also how infrequently classrooms are used on Fridays and evenings, right? Walk through a campus on Tuesday at 11, it's every room is used. Friday, I mean, you could have every room you want, right? I mean, so there's a lot to be said about this. I think that faculty and others need to be, coming back to where we were before, part of a conversation that says we're not taking your offices because we want space, but because this is what we are about as a campus. And here's how we think sincerely, and you have to be convinced it's about this, not about cost saving. It's about getting us to be a better community, right? So maybe you can have fancier common spaces, right? I mean, simple things can make a big difference, right? People like coffee, right? Is there a common space with a fancy coffee maker instead of private offices, right? Are there offices structured in a way in which they have more access to the things they want, even if they have less privacy, right? There are many ways one can think creatively about this, and I think too often when you go to talk about shared workspace, faculty immediately think, oh, they're trying to save money, right? But instead, if it becomes part of an ongoing conversation, not just about offices, but about community, this is who we are, and here's the problem we have, right? What I would say to faculty, what I do say to my colleagues is, look, most of you entered this profession because you loved being around smart people who wanted to talk about ideas and research. Right? So let's actually structure our lives that way instead of putting ourselves in private offices on different parts of campus, right, where we never talk to each other, right? Let's set things up that way. And if you build the credibility and you show from the top of your institution down that you are serious about that, I think you can get a lot more buy-in. And I would say always start young. Every new generation of faculty, just like every new generation of staff and students, it's a new opportunity. They've not been socialized yet. They arrive, they're so happy to have a job, right? Socialize them. Make sure you socialize them, not the bad apples, which is what happens, right? It happens in all of our areas. So I think your plan could work, and I'd love to see that at the University of Minnesota. It's going to be a 5-year plan. It's not a 1-year plan, but you've got to build toward that. I think that's our future. That's where we're going to be.
One last question right here.
It's not a question, it's a comment. My name's Pete Pollack, and I'm a consultant. But you say the future and the young. I come from Virginia, and there's a law in Virginia that senior citizens 60 and over can take any course they want at public universities and pay no tuition. And I'm certainly taking advantage of it.
You should.
And you know, it's not just the young. It's the fastest segment of the population, fastest growing.
Absolutely. When I say public, I mean that's a crucial part of our public. Every semester, I have at least 10 to 15 of what I call mature students who sit in on my courses. Some of them sign up because Texas has the same law. Some of them, they just come. I don't care. If it's a large lecture course, just come. Sit. I mean, anyone can come now. Sit in the back, right? Bring someone, right? Have them see what we're about. Right? I mean, I think this is where you're going, Pete, right? Have them understand what we're about. We're offering value to them. They should feel ownership and a stake in us, right? We don't do that enough. We build walls to keep them out. We build walls to, if I had my way, I don't know where I'd find this space, but there'd be a parking lot for visiting senior auditors to come. Well, because they vote, they pay taxes, right? Let them actually believe in what we do. Let them be a part of what we do. The only reason I emphasize the young is because I think the institutional change is going to happen with the young. But the public relationship, absolutely. It's with people like you, Pete.
Yeah, but I'll give you some other observations as someone coming to campus after 40-something years in industry. I'm an adjunct at a university and also a community college, and the curriculum, in a lot of cases, the core curriculum, hasn't changed since I went to school. And also the facilities, some of their specifications, Thomas Jefferson would, he'd recognize the stuff immediately.
This is what I said about we shouldn't simply do what we're doing because we've always done it. Let's ask ourselves why we're doing what we're doing. At the University of Texas, there are 268 different majors. That makes no sense at all. Many of them are legacies, right? Just as we have legacy buildings, we have legacy curricula. We need to take a long, hard look, and we should use history not to say we need to keep doing what we've done, but to remind ourselves what our mission is. What is our mission? Is every building serving our mission? Is every major serving our mission? Is every new office facility serving our mission? Can we build better faculty administrative relations around our mission? That's where we need to start, and that's what we always forget. Thank you.
Okay. Professor Suri,
Thank you.
we appreciate it very much. Thank you very much this morning, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending this morning's opening session. I believe the exhibit hall is about to get open, so come see all of us business partners. It's always good to see friends. You guys are part of my life here, so thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you.
I have a couple of last comments. So it's 10 o'clock. The opening of the Hall of Resources is right around the corner. President Smith will be there doing the ribbon cutting in just a few moments. So thank you. Make sure you spend time with your business partners today. Thank you very much.